Tray for Berman, and he calls. 9-8 for Helmuth. He checks. Flop is king 8-8, and Phil Hellmuth flops trip 8s. They both check into the turn. Jack of clubs. Helmuth checks again.
Trying to draw a bluff from Lyle Berman, and he succeeded in getting one.
Berman bets 3,500. Helmuth calls. River cards of 4 of spades.
Phil checks. He realizes Lyle didn't have anything.
There's something every hand.
And he was right, but Lyle refused to get drawn into another bluff. He's complaining about how many hands Phil has gotten.
Very good. I'm not enjoying this so far. I've got to get a new plan B.
So Phil Hellmuth adds to his lead.
This is getting very expensive. I'm burning up about 5,000 a hand.
This time, Phil Hellmuth is just playing poker, and he's still upsetting his opponent.
More from the Golden Nugget right after this. The band OAR, Of a Revolution, with Crazy Game of Poker, the theme song on the National Heads Up Poker Championship.
Do you recognize me in that concert, Matt? I was the guy getting passed around in the audience.
The line's up to 8 and 1,600 now for Antonio Esfandiari and Scott Fishman. Jack 3 for Esfandiari. He calls.
Remember, this is the match where cards aren't important. The players are playing each other.
Suited 4 deuce for Fishman. He raises up to 4,100.
That's what I'm talking about. 4 deuce. Why not make it another 4,100?
And why not call if you're the magician? Flop comes ace, 5, king.
Scott Fishman has flopped an inside straight draw and a backdoor flush.
And bets 3,000. Antonio Esfandiari calls him.
Antonio again has absolutely nothing.
Turns a 6 of diamonds.
Don't pay any attention to those percentages. The person who wins this hand is going to be the person that's going to bet. This hand is not going to be shown down.
Fishman bets, and Esfandiari folds.
Yes, and if Scott Fishman didn't bet there, Antonio Esfandiari would have bet.
Lindsay Zarniak's in the crowd, and she's found a partisan observer.
David Williams eliminated in the first round by Carlos Mortensen, but you are back tonight. Who are you here supporting?
I'm here to support and root on Antonio Esfandiari. Everyone here is a good friend of mine, all the 8 competitors, but Antonio is probably my close friend out of all of them. We do stuff outside of poker together, so I'm here to support Antonio.
And you said someone else puts on quite a nice show that you don't mind watching too. Who's that?
I would love to see Phil Hellmuth go far, just because it's so. Watching him on TV is amazing, just because his personality is awesome. So the more you can put Phil Hellmuth on TV, the more enjoyable poker is to watch in my eyes.
And when you look back into this tournament, was there one style of play that you think at the end of the day is what helped these guys get to this level?
I don't think so. I think everyone sort of kind of played their own game and kind of adapted to who they were playing. And like Carlos Mortensen, who I played, he's known to be very aggressive and over the top. But when he played me, he wasn't. So it was kind of everyone changed, and found a fit to adapt to your opponent.
So, are you ready to predict that you will be the champion of the 2006 Heads Up Championship?
I will definitely do my best. I'll put in more effort and practice a lot harder, and hopefully can come out on top. I've had more experience against the players and maybe know more about them.
All right. Thanks, David.
No problem.
This is different than other tournaments, Matt. Usually when players are eliminated, they leave. Here, most of them are staying around. They want to see what's going to happen.
Scott Fishman with ace-4 suited. He has a slight chip deficit to Antonio Esfandiari. He calls for 800, and Esfandiari will check.
Now, we've seen Scott Fishman raise with a deuce-3 suited, but he just calls with an ace-4 suited.
Interesting flop as both players flop a pair of aces for Scott Fishman as Antonio Esfandiari quickly checks. Fishman bets out 1,600. And Esfandiari calls.
This is turned into a poker game here. Aces bet and queens called.
And the turn brings a 3rd queen for Esfandiari.
Very big hand, particularly in this kind of match, where both players have been betting with nothing.
And on the trip queens, the magician bets out 3,600.
He's hoping now that Scott has aces and will call or raise.
Fishman does indeed call.
Esfandiari has to avoid another ace here, and he'll win a nice pot.
River's a king of clubs, no help for Scott Fishman, so as the percentages tell you, Antonio will win the pot unless he folds. Sfandiari bets at 7,600.
I think Scott Fishman's going to have to call. He's raising here,
Wow.
Matt.
Up to 24-6.
I think Scott Fishman's doing that because he feels that this is a split pot. He's giving Antonio an ace, which means they both have aces and queens with a king kicker. He's trying to buy it. Antonio's debating whether to raise or just call.
And he lays down the 3 queens.
Bad play, bad read. He saw something that wasn't there.
Wow. And from that wild hand to another one of our outer tables now, where Chris Ferguson on your right has a 4-1 chip advantage over Mike Sexton. Sexton on a pair of aces is all in.
Right, Chris is trying to deliver the knockout blow here, but he doesn't have much of a chance. You see the graphic, only 17%. Mike's in really good shape to double up and get right back in this match.
Flop comes 4-7-5, a couple of spades.
Chris Ferguson's flopped a pair of 4s. He could take the lead in this hand with a 4 or a queen.
On the turn, a 3 of hearts, and that gives Chris Ferguson a few more outs.
Right, his percentages go up now. You see 32%. He could win with a heart, a queen, or a 4 and knock Mike Sexton out of the tournament.
The Sexton cheering section hoping that the Bullets hold on. The River brings a deuce of hearts, and Chris Ferguson makes a flush. That eliminates Mike Sexton, a bad beat and a tough way to bow out here in the quarterfinals.
Sometimes players who have a big chip advantage want to end the match. They put their money in. They don't have the best hand, but if they get lucky, they go on, their opponent doesn't.
Well, Chris Ferguson knows that it not only takes good play, but a little good luck as well to make it this far in the National Heads Up Poker Championship. In his first round match, he drew and defeated Cindy Violette. Next up for Ferguson was the winner of NBC's coverage of the Poker Superstars, Gus Hansen. Then in the round of 16, he defeated Mimi Tran.
He's the 2000 world champion, and right now he's playing good and he's playing lucky. That's a tough combination to beat.
And by virtue of his victory over Mike Sexton, which we just watched, Chris Ferguson becomes the first player to advance to the semifinals. More from the round of 8 right after this. Welcome back to the Golden Nugget Hotel and Casino on busy Fremont Street. Chris Ferguson just advanced to the semifinals. 3 spots still to be claimed. And a reminder, the semifinals and championship will be on NBC tomorrow, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern. Back to our featured table. Phil Hellmuth and Lyle Berman still about even with the blinds up to 1 and 2,000. Suited Queen 5 for Hellmuth, who calls, and Berman on King 9 will check. Flop comes 9 deuce 4. Berman flops a pair and quickly checks. And Hellmuth bets 3,000.
Phil's betting because he doesn't have anything. This follows a pattern. When Phil has a good hand, he checks. When he has nothing, he tries to steal it.
And Berman checks on the turn card, the 5 of spades. Hellmuth bets 6,000.
He's made a pair of 5s. But Lyle still has top pair with a pretty good kicker, a king.
And Berman now raises to 21,000.
Lyle hasn't picked up too many hands today, and he's playing this hand very strong. He's picked the right time. Phil has nothing but a pair of 5s.